The massive alien station hung in space above Earth like a silver moon. Inside the observation deck, Commander Velthar stared at the blue planet below with growing concern. His thin, pale fingers trembled slightly as he reviewed the data on his screen. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. The readings must be incorrect, he said to his science officer, Kixtal. The insect-like alien clicked his mandibles together in what might have been agreement or disagreement. Velthar could never tell. The readings are correct, Commander, Kixtal replied. This planet registers as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger classification in our database. Velthar felt his two hearts beat faster. Class 12 worlds were nightmares. Crushing gravity, violent weather systems, aggressive predators, deadly diseases. Most species went extinct on such planets. The few that survived never developed technology. They remained primitive, fighting daily just to stay alive. Yet the radio signals were clear. The orbital satellites were real. The nuclear signatures proved advanced energy manipulation. Somehow, impossibly, this death world had produced a spacefaring civilization. Prepare first contact protocols, Velthar ordered, but maintain defensive positions. We do not know what kind of species could survive such a world. 3 hours later, Captain Taejun Kim stepped through the airlock into the Coalition station. He moved with confidence, his boots making solid sounds on the metal floor. Behind him walked Dr. Hana Park and Ambassador Yuna Lee. All three wore simple gray uniforms with the Earth insignia on their shoulders. Velthar watched them approach and immediately felt uneasy. These humans were built like siege weapons. Thick muscles moved under their skin. They stood in full gravity without assistance, while his own species required support fields just to move comfortably. Each human probably weighed twice what he did. Welcome to Coalition Station Harmony, Velthar said through his translator device. I am Commander Velthar of the Luminary people. We come in peace and friendship. Taejun smiled and extended his hand. Velthar stared at it, confused. Kixtal made a worried chittering sound. It's called a handshake, Hana explained gently. A human greeting. You grasp hands briefly. It shows trust. Velthar slowly reached out. The human's grip was careful, but he could feel the strength behind it. This creature could crush his hand without effort. He pulled back quickly. Please sit. Velthar gestured to chairs designed for Coalition species. The humans sat and the furniture groaned under their weight. Velthar made a mental note to reinforce everything in the station. We have many questions, Yuna said. Her voice was calm and diplomatic. Your arrival surprised us. We didn't know other intelligent species existed, and we are surprised you exist at all, Velthar admitted. He pulled up a holographic display of Earth. Your planet is classified as extremely dangerous. The gravity alone would crush most species. Your weather systems are catastrophic. We detected what you call hurricanes with wind speeds that would tear apart our buildings. Your oceans contain pressure depths that would implode our strongest submarines. That's just Earth, Taejun said with a shrug. We're used to it. Used to it. Kixtal clicked forward, his multiple eyes examining the humans closely. Your planet has active volcanoes, earthquakes that split the ground, predatory animals with claws and teeth, microscopic organisms that cause deadly diseases. How does any species survive such conditions? Hana smiled. We evolved there. Earth shaped us, made us strong, made us adaptable. Velthar pulled up more data. According to our scans, your bodies are incredible. Dense muscle tissue, redundant organ systems, aggressive immune responses. You have a skeletal structure designed to support weight in 1.2 times standard gravity. You heal from injuries that would be fatal to us. We're just humans, Yuna said. This is normal for us. Normal, Velthar repeated quietly. He looked at his own thin arms, his fragile bones. His species evolved on a gentle world with 0.7 gravity and predictable weather. They had no predators, no diseases, no challenges. They developed intelligence out of curiosity, not survival necessity. These humans developed intelligence to conquer a world that was actively trying to kill them. We must discuss your status in the Galactic Coalition, Velthar continued. Typically, species from death worlds require protection. Guardian status. We have resources to help you relocate to safer planets. Establish colonies in stable environments. Taejun's expression changed. His eyes hardened slightly. We don't need protection. But your planet is dangerous, Velthar insisted. We have protocols for this. We can evacuate your population over time. Find you proper homes. Earth is our home, Yuna said firmly. We're not leaving it. You don't understand, Velthar stood, agitated. Your children are growing up in a death trap. Your people face constant danger. We can offer you paradise worlds. Safe places where you can finally rest, Hana laughed. Actually laughed. Commander, we don't want to rest. We like Earth, yes, it's challenging, but it's ours. We built our civilization there. Our history is written in that soil. Besides, Taejun added, we've already achieved faster-than-light travel. We have colonies on Mars and Europa. We're expanding through our solar system. We don't need rescue. We need trade partners and allies. Velthar sat back down heavily. His mind struggled to process this. Species from Deathworlds were supposed to be grateful for salvation. They were supposed to be desperate to escape their nightmare planets. These humans acted like they were proud of their horrible world. Your FTL technology, Kickstall said suddenly. We reviewed your basic designs. They are reckless. You use controlled matter-antimatter reactions. The risk of catastrophic failure is significant. We tested thoroughly, Hana replied. The risk is acceptable. Acceptable? Kickstall's voice rose in pitch. One miscalculation and your ships would vaporize. Yes, Taejun said simply. We accepted that risk. Progress requires risk. Velthar felt a chill run through his body. These creatures were insane. They lived on a planet that constantly tried to kill them. And they called it home. They built ships that could explode, and they called the risk acceptable. They had the physical power to crush him, and they offered handshakes instead of threats. We need time to consider this, Velthar said carefully. This situation is unprecedented. A Deathworld species that refuses protection. A species that embraces danger. The Coalition Council must discuss how to proceed. We understand, Yuna said. Take your time. We're patient, a chime sounded. Velthar's communication officer appeared on screen. Commander, we're receiving a distress signal. The mining colony at Helion 7 is under attack. The Krath Empire has sent raiders. The colony is requesting immediate military assistance. Velthar's heart sank. The Krath, of all the species in known space, they were the most aggressive. Warriors from a harsh world themselves, though not quite a death world. Coalition peacekeeping forces would need days to arrive. The colony would fall before then. Inform the colony we're dispatching help, Velthar said. He turned to the humans. I apologize, but we have an emergency. A colony needs rescue. We could help, Taejun offered. Velthar almost laughed. No, this requires military force. Trained peacekeepers. The Krath are dangerous warriors. We have military forces, Taejun said. We came prepared. You brought weapons to first contact? Velthar was shocked. We brought everything to first contact, Yuna said. We didn't know what we'd find out here. Better to have tools and not need them. Velthar looked at these strange, powerful creatures. Part of him wanted to refuse their help. Part of him was curious what Deathworld warriors could actually do. Against his better judgment, he nodded. Very well. You may send a contingent with our peacekeepers, but please be careful. The Krath are not to be underestimated. Taejun stood, and again Velthar was struck by how solid these humans seemed. Like they were carved from stone instead of grown from cells. Commander, Taejun said with a slight smile, you should know something about humans. Being careful is not really our specialty. The transport ship traveled through space toward Helion 7. Inside the cargo bay, Lieutenant Ji-Woo Choi checked her rifle for the third time. Around her, 40 human Marines prepared their equipment. Across from them, 200 Coalition peacekeepers floated on hover platforms, their fragile bodies unable to handle the transport's gravity. Sergeant Bora Nam walked between the humans, her boots heavy on the metal floor. She carried enough equipment to outfit 3 Coalition soldiers. Her combat armor was thick and scarred from previous missions. Listen up, Ji-Woo called out. Intelligence says we're facing Krath raiders. Reptilian species. About 2.5 meters tall. Natural armor plating. They're considered the Coalition's biggest military threat. One of her Marines, a young man named Do-Yun, raised his hand. Ma'am, if they're so dangerous, why do we only have 40 people going in? Because Command thinks 40 humans is plenty, Ji-Woo answered with a grin. Let's prove them right. A Coalition officer named Pilrex floated over on his platform. His species, the Tenthari, looked like a jellyfish with too many eyes. Lieutenant Choi, please understand that the Krath are extremely dangerous. They have never been defeated in close combat. We recommend staying at maximum range and using support fire only. Noted, Ji-Woo said. She didn't mention that human doctrine preferred close combat. Aliens didn't understand that humans trained, specifically for situations where plans fell apart and fighting became personal. The transport shuddered as it entered the asteroid field surrounding Helion 7. Through the viewports, they could see the mining colony. Smoke poured from damaged structures. Krath ships circled overhead like predatory birds. Landing in 2 minutes, the pilot announced. Be advised, the landing zone is hot. Enemy forces confirmed in the area. The Coalition peacekeepers checked their weapons nervously. Energy rifles, stun grenades, non-lethal suppression equipment. They had been fighting the Krath for decades using careful tactics and minimal force. The humans checked their weapons too. Kinetic rifles that fired solid projectiles, explosive charges, breaching equipment. They had been fighting each other on Earth for centuries using maximum force and aggressive tactics. The transport touched down hard. The rear ramp dropped and Jiwoo was moving before it fully opened. Her Marines followed in practiced formation. They hit the ground running, literally running, while the Coalition forces carefully maneuvered their hover platforms down the ramp. The first Krath warrior appeared around a corner. It was massive. Scaled skin that looked like natural body armor, claws the length of knives, eyes that burned with aggressive intelligence. It roared and charged toward the Coalition peacekeepers. They scattered, their platforms wobbling. Energy weapons fired, but the shots barely scorched the Krath's thick hide. Jiwoo didn't hesitate. She sprinted directly at the creature, closing the distance while it was focused on the aliens. At the last second, she slid under its claws and slammed her rifle stock into its knee joint. The Krath stumbled. Dohyun was already there, using a shock baton to hit pressure points that Hana had identified in their briefing. The Krath went down, unconscious, but alive. Pilrex stared in shock. You charged it. Directly at it? It was distracted, Jiwoo said, already moving forward. Come on, we need to secure the civilians. The battle developed quickly. Krath warriors were everywhere. Having broken through the colony's outer defenses, they moved with predatory grace, using their natural weapons and brutal strength. Against most species, they were nearly unstoppable. Against humans, they were confused. Bora led her squad through a damaged corridor. 3 Krath blocked the path ahead. They roared and charged. Instead of retreating, Bora's squad advanced. They used breaching charges to blow holes in the walls, creating new paths. They threw smoke grenades that didn't bother human helmet sensors but blinded Krath eyes. They fought with a controlled aggression that seemed insane to watching Coalition forces. One Krath grabbed Bora by the arm. Its claws punctured her armor and drew blood. Instead of screaming or falling back, Bora headbutted the creature and jabbed her combat knife into a gap in its scales. The Krath released her in surprise. 2 of her Marines hit it with shock batons and it collapsed. Sergeant Nam, you're injured. Pilrex's voice came through the radio. Fall back for medical treatment. It's just a scratch, Bora replied, slapping a quick seal bandage over the wound. I'm fine. Your vital signs show significant pain and blood loss. Yeah, it hurts. I'll deal with it later. We have civilians to save. Pilrex watched through his command center monitors as the human continued fighting. Injuries that would force any Coalition soldier to retire from the battle merely slowed humans down. They kept moving, kept fighting, kept pushing forward. In the colony's central plaza, Jiwoo's main force encountered the Krath commander. It was even larger than the others, with scars that told stories of many victories. Around it stood 15 warriors. The 200 Coalition peacekeepers formed a defensive line, energy weapons raised. They prepared for a long standoff, trying to negotiate or wait for the Krath to make a mistake. Jiwoo studied the situation for 5 seconds, then made her decision. Bora, breach the east wall. Dohyun, suppressing fire on my mark. Everyone else with me. We're going straight through. That's suicide, Pilrex protested over the radio. No, Jiwoo replied calmly. That's tactics, she counted down. 3, 2, 1, mark. Dohyun's squad opened fire with their kinetic rifles. The solid projectiles didn't kill the Krath, but they staggered them, made them react. Bora's breaching charge exploded, creating a cloud of dust and debris. Jiwoo led her Marines directly into the chaos. The Krath commander expected enemies to stay back, to fight from distance. It didn't expect 30 humans to rush into melee range. Its warriors swung their claws, but the humans were smaller, faster, working as a coordinated unit. They used shock weapons, targeted joint areas, and most importantly, they didn't stop moving. The Coalition peacekeepers watched in amazement as humans fought Krath warriors in hand-to-hand combat and won. Not through superior strength, though humans were surprisingly strong. Not through better weapons, though their equipment was effective. They won through pure aggressive determination. A Krath warrior knocked a Marine named Hyunwoo to the ground. It raised its claws for a killing strike. Hyunwoo rolled, avoiding the blow, and swept the creature's legs. As it fell, 3 other Marines were already there, subduing it. The Krath commander roared in frustration. It grabbed Jiwoo, lifting her off the ground. Its claws pressed against her armor, starting to puncture through. Jiwoo didn't panic. She emptied her rifle's magazine into the commander's arm. Not killing shots, but painful ones. It dropped her and she rolled away. "Suppression rounds, concentrated fire," she ordered. 20 human rifles fired simultaneously at the commander. The kinetic impacts drove it backward step by step until it stumbled and fell. Marines swarmed it, using restraints designed to hold Earth's most dangerous predators. The battle was over in 8 minutes. Pilrex surveyed the aftermath. 40 humans had engaged and defeated 60 Krath warriors with minimal casualties. The Krath were being loaded into detention cells, alive and mostly unharmed. The colonists were safe. "I don't understand," Pilrex said as Jiwoo removed her helmet. "The Krath have been our greatest military threat for decades. We've lost hundreds of soldiers fighting them. You defeated them with 40 people. They're tough," Jiwoo acknowledged, wiping sweat from her face. "But they're not invincible. You were fighting them with the wrong tactics. We were using standard peacekeeping protocols." "Exactly, standard, predictable." Jiwoo sat down heavily, finally allowing herself to feel the exhaustion. "On Earth we have a saying. No plan survives contact with the enemy. You have to be ready to adapt, to take risks, to get close and personal when necessary." Bora joined them, her arm properly bandaged now. "Plus, we're used to fighting dangerous things. Earth is full of creatures that can kill you. Snakes, sharks, bears, crocodiles, spiders. We learned young that being cautious isn't always being safe." A Coalition medical officer examined Bora's wound and made distressed sounds. "This injury should have incapacitated you. The pain alone." "Humans have good pain tolerance," Bora said with a shrug. "Comes from the Deathworld upbringing, I guess." Velthar arrived on the next transport. He walked through the secured colony, observing the captured Krath and the celebrating humans. His mind was reeling. Everything he thought he knew about warfare had just been challenged. He found Jiwoo giving a briefing to her Marines. "Good work today. Clean extraction, minimal casualties, objective secured. Remember to file your after-action reports. Dismissed." The Marines dispersed. Velthar approached carefully. "Lieutenant Choi, I must ask, were you holding back during that battle?" Jiwoo looked at him, surprised. "Yes, sir. We were under strict orders to use non-lethal suppression, taking prisoners for trial." "Those were non-lethal tactics?" "Yes, sir. If we'd been authorized for lethal force, the battle would have been much faster." She paused, seeing his expression. "Is something wrong?" Velthar felt his hands trembling again. "You were being gentle with them." "We were following rules of engagement appropriate for peacekeeping operations," Jiwoo corrected. "Is that not standard?" "For most species, what you just did would be their absolute maximum combat capability." Jiwoo considered Dr. Minyo Song stood in the Coalition medical station, staring at a holographic display of human anatomy. Around him, alien doctors made worried chirping and clicking sounds. They had been studying the human volunteers for 3 days, and each discovery was more disturbing than the last. "This cannot be correct," said Thelnara, the station's medical director. Her species, the Velthian, had the most advanced medical knowledge in the Coalition. She had 6 delicate manipulator arms and eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum. "Run the scans again." "We've run them 5 times, Minho said patiently. "The results are consistent. This is normal human biology." Thelnara pointed at the display with 3 arms simultaneously. "You have redundant organ systems. 2 kidneys when one would suffice. A backup cardiovascular path in case primary blood vessels fail. Your liver regenerates damaged tissue. Your bones are dense mineral structures that heal stronger after breaking. This is not normal. This is military-grade combat engineering. This is evolution on Earth," Minho replied. He pulled up comparative data. "Your species evolved on a stable world with few threats. Your bodies are efficient and optimized for your environment. Humans evolved on a planet that constantly challenged us. Our bodies are built for survival. not efficiency. Another doctor, a floating gas bag creature named Wilzef, drifted closer to examine the data. Your immune system is horrifying. It attacks everything. We detected it fighting off 3 different bacterial infections, 2 viral threats, and what appears to be abnormal cell growth simultaneously. Cancer cells, Minho explained. Our bodies produce them regularly. Our immune system hunts them down. Regularly? Wilzef's gas bag pulsed with distress. Your own body produces deadly cells? Constantly. It's normal. Most humans never even know it's happening. Thelnara made a gesture that Minho had learned meant extreme concern. We need to inform the Council. Humans are not just Deathworld survivors. You are walking biological warfare platforms. In another section of the station, researcher Suman Kwan was giving a presentation to coalition scientists. The amphitheater was packed. News of human capabilities had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to understand these strange creatures. Let me tell you about persistence hunting, Suman said, displaying a video of an ancient human chasing an antelope across African plains. This is how early humans hunted. We didn't use our speed. We used our endurance. The video showed the human jogging steadily while the antelope sprinted away. Then the antelope stopped, panting, exhausted. The human kept jogging. The antelope ran again. Stopped again. This repeated for hours until finally the antelope collapsed from heat exhaustion, and the human walked up calmly. We chased prey until it died from exhaustion. Suman continued. No other predator on Earth hunts this way. Most predators sprint. They catch prey quickly or give up. Humans are different. We don't give up. We just keep going. A scientist from the Porlath species raised a tentacle. But this is inefficient. Why not develop speed? Because endurance was more reliable, Suman explained. Speed requires explosive energy. Endurance requires steady energy. On Earth, food wasn't always available. We needed to succeed when we hunted. Persistence hunting had a very high success rate. She pulled up another chart. Modern humans retain this trait. We can run for hours. We can work for days with minimal sleep. We can function through pain and exhaustion that would kill most species. It's not that we're stronger. We're just incredibly stubborn. The audience made various sounds of discomfort and amazement. Ambassador Yuna Lee was facing a different kind of challenge. The Coalition Council had invited her to participate in a goodwill athletic event. Various species would compete in physical challenges to promote unity and understanding. It's meant to be friendly competition, Velthar explained. Each species demonstrates their natural abilities, builds appreciation for diversity. Sounds fun, Yuna said with a smile. What are the events? Velthar showed her the list. Distance running, climbing, swimming, basic strength tests. All scaled to be fair for different species. Everyone competes at their own level. No pressure to win, just participation. Yuna agreed and showed up the next day in simple athletic clothes. The other participants were already there. A gazelle-like species called the Pronthi, known for their speed. A strong rock-like species called the Gorath, known for their power. An aquatic species called the Kelthrim, known for swimming ability. The first event was distance running. The Pronthi representative, a graceful creature named Vilthi, was favored to win. The course was 10 kilometers around the station's outer ring. The race began. Vilthi sprinted ahead immediately, long legs eating up distance. The Gorath plodded along steadily. The Kelthrim struggled in the normal atmosphere. Yuna jogged at a comfortable pace. After 2 kilometers, Vilthi began to slow. After 4 kilometers, they were panting heavily. After 6 kilometers, they had to stop to rest. The medical team rushed over with oxygen and hydration. Yuna jogged past, barely breathing hard. She waved politely. The Gorath gave up at 8 kilometers. Their heavy body wasn't built for distance. The Kelthrim had quit even earlier. Only Yuna continued at that same steady pace around and around the track. She crossed the finish line and kept jogging. The timekeepers stared at her in confusion. The race is over, they called out. You won. I know, Yuna called back, not stopping. But 10 kilometers is just a warm-up. I usually run 20 in my morning routine. Do you mind if I finish? She completed her full 20 kilometers while the medical staff monitored her vitals in disbelief. Her heart rate was elevated but steady. Her breathing was controlled. She wasn't dying. She wasn't even particularly tired. Velthar watched the climbing event with growing concern. The course required ascending a 50-meter wall with handholds. Most species used assisted equipment. The Pronthi had given up on this event entirely, their bodies not designed for climbing. The Gorath representative, a massive creature named Throck, made it halfway up before his arms gave out. He descended slowly, exhausted. Yuna approached the wall, examined it briefly, and began climbing. She moved steadily, testing each handhold, using her legs efficiently. Halfway up, one handhold broke. She caught herself with one hand, found a new grip, and continued climbing. At the top, she paused to look at the view, then descended just as calmly. "Your species evolved climbing abilities?" a judge asked. "Our ancestors lived in trees," Yuna explained. "Then we came down and learned to walk upright. But we kept the ability to climb. It's useful." The swimming event was less impressive for Yuna. The aquatic Kelthram won easily, their bodies perfectly designed for water. But Yuna still completed the full course without assistance. She held her breath for nearly 4 minutes, something that shocked the Kelthram who could hold theirs for 10. 4 minutes seems impossible for a land species, they said. Humans used to hunt by diving, Yuna explained. Some human cultures could hold their breath for 15 minutes. "I'm not that good." The strength test was simple. Lift progressively heavier weights. The Gorath were expected to dominate. Thruck lifted an enormous mass equal to twice his body weight. The audience applauded. Yuna stepped up. She lifted the same weight. The crowd went silent. She added more. Lifted again. Added more. Kept going until she was lifting nearly twice her body weight, roughly equal to the Gorath's performance. "How?" Thruck asked, genuinely confused. "Your body is half my size." "Dense muscle tissue," Yuna said. "High-gravity world evolution. Our bones and muscles are built to carry heavy loads in 1.2 g constantly." After the events ended, Velthar called an emergency council meeting. The results were being analyzed by scientists across the coalition. The human didn't win every event, Velthar admitted. She placed second in swimming and tied in strength. But she completed every single event without medical assistance. No other species managed that. Most could only compete in 1 or 2 events. "What does this mean?" asked Council Speaker Tilwen. Thelnara stepped forward with her medical report. "It means humans are the most physically versatile species we've ever encountered. They're not the fastest or the strongest or the best at any single thing, but they're good at everything. They can adapt to any physical challenge." She displayed medical scans. "Their bodies are designed for survival in any condition. They can function in extreme heat and cold. They can eat almost any organic matter. They can fight off diseases that would devastate our populations. They can survive injuries that would be fatal to us. They heal faster. They endure longer. They never give up," Sumin added to the presentation. "This is what happens when evolution occurs on a death world. Every biological system becomes optimized for survival. Humans didn't evolve to thrive. They evolved to refuse to die." Later that evening, Minho met with Yuna for coffee in the station's diplomatic lounge. Several alien species watched them with a mixture of fascination and fear. "I think I scared them today," Yuna said, sipping her coffee. "You and me both," Minho replied. "The medical staff nearly panicked when they realized what we call coffee is a concentrated stimulant toxin to most species." "Really?" "Caffeine is deadly to probably 80% of coalition species. We drink it for fun." Yuna laughed. "What else are they where the Krath Empire fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of angry hornets? 300 warships, each one designed for one purpose, destruction. They assembled in formation at the edge of coalition space, their weapons hot and ready. On coalition station Harmony, alarms screamed through every corridor." Velthar stared at his tactical display with growing horror. His defense fleet numbered barely 80 ships, and most of those were science vessels with minimal weapons. The coalition had never been a military power. They relied on diplomacy and peacekeeping. The Krath had just declared they were done talking. "How long until reinforcements arrive?" Velthar asked his tactical officer. 6 days minimum," came the reply. "The nearest coalition battle group is on the far side of the sector. Will be destroyed in 6 hours," Velthar said quietly. "Earth's fleet is 2 hours away." Taejun's voice came over the comm system. "If you want their help." Velthar's hands trembled as he pressed the communication button. "How many ships?" 60. "That's not enough. We're outnumbered 5 to 1. Earth thought 60 would be sufficient," Taejun said calmly. But if you don't want help, we can turn around. Velthar looked at the approaching Krath fleet, at his own inadequate defenses, at the millions of lives depending on his decisions. We accept your assistance. 2 hours later, Earth's first expeditionary fleet arrived. Velthar watched them emerge from FTL, and his first thought was that humans had sent ugly ships. Coalition vessels were elegant. Smooth curves, artistic designs, ships that looked like they belonged in a museum. Human ships looked like they belonged in a scrapyard. They were angular blocks of metal and armor plating. No decorative elements, no aesthetic considerations. Just thick hulls, heavy weapons, and what appeared to be excessive redundancy in every system. Admiral Dae-hyun Cho's flagship, the Seoul, was the largest. It was basically a flying fortress with engines attached. Weapons bristled from every surface. The armor was so thick the ship must be hideously slow. Coalition forces, this is Admiral Cho, came the transmission. We're here to assist. Transmitting tactical formations now. Velthar reviewed the formations and nearly choked. Admiral, these formations put your ships between us and the enemy. You'll take the brunt of their attack. That's the idea, Dae-hyun replied. Our ships can take more punishment. Yours are better at long-range support. Let us tank the damage while you provide covering fire. Tank the damage? Velthar didn't understand the phrase. Absorb the hits. Our armor is thick. Our shields are redundant. We're built to get shot at. No ship is built to get shot at. Human ships are, Dae-hyun said simply. Trust us. We know what we're doing. The Krath fleet advanced. Their commander, Warlord Shriktar, watched the combined forces with amusement. The coalition had called for backup and received a handful of primitive ships. This would be easier than expected. All ships advance and destroy, Shriktar ordered. Leave no survivors. The Krath opened fire first. Energy weapons that could punch through standard coalition shielding lit up space. Velthar's fleet scattered, using their superior speed to dodge. Coalition doctrine was built on avoiding damage. The human ships did something different. They didn't dodge. They flew straight into the weapons fire, evasive maneuvers. Velthar screamed over the comm. Human ships, you're taking direct hits. Confirmed, came Captain Sora Lim's voice from her destroyer. Shields holding at 87%. Returning fire, holding. Those blasts should have crippled her ship. Velthar watched in amazement as human vessels absorbed punishment that would have destroyed coalition ships and barely slowed down. Sora led a squadron of human fighters into the battle. They flew with aggressive maneuvers that made Velthar's head hurt. Sharp turns at high speed, rolls and loops that should have killed the pilots from the G-forces. How is she surviving those accelerations? A coalition pilot asked over the open channel. Inertial dampeners at maximum, came Sora's reply. She sounded strained but functional. Pulling about 8 Gs right now. It's uncomfortable but manageable. 8 Gs? That would liquefy a coalition pilot. Velthar was learning that human tolerance for physical stress was even higher than he thought. The battle intensified. Krath ships were fast and well-armed. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking hard and pulling back. It was effective against coalition forces who couldn't absorb the damage. Against humans, it was less effective. Every time a Krath ship struck a human vessel, the human ship just kept coming. The Seoul took a direct hit from a Krath heavy cruiser's main weapon. The blast would have vaporized a coalition ship. The Seoul's armor glowed orange from the heat. Systems sparked, but the ship kept flying and returned fire with its own heavy weapons. Hull breach on decks 7 and 8, someone reported. Sealing bulkheads, rerouting power through backup systems. Backup systems? Velthar asked Taejun, who was coordinating from the station. How many backup systems do your ships have? 3 or 4 for critical systems, Taejun replied. We assume primary systems will fail. Ships are designed to keep fighting even with severe damage. This was insane. Coalition ships were built to avoid damage. Human ships were built expecting to get hit. It was a completely different philosophy. June Park, the engineer who designed many human ship systems, was aboard the Seoul. His station was in engineering, deep in the ship's protected core. He monitored damage reports and rerouted power with practiced efficiency. Main reactor at 90%, he reported. Port weapons array offline, compensating with starboard batteries. Shield generators 3 and 5 damaged, 1 and 2 holding. Switching to auxiliary power for life support on decks 5 through 9. He made it sound routine, like massive damage was just another Tuesday. A Krath battleship targeted the Seoul directly, pouring fire into its shields. Dae-hyun watched the shield strength drop steadily. 70%, 60-50. All power to forward shields, he ordered. Helm, take us straight at that battleship. Admiral, our shields can't handle much more, his tactical officer warned. They don't need to handle much more. We just need to get close. The Soul accelerated directly toward the enemy. Coalition officers watching from the station couldn't believe it. This was suicide. The human ship was flying into concentrated fire. The shields collapsed at 30%. Energy blasts started hitting armor directly. The Soul's hull began to glow. Metal vaporized. But the ship didn't stop. It crashed into the Krath battleship at ramming speed. The impact was catastrophic. Both ships tumbled through space locked together. But the Soul had been built for exactly this kind of abuse. Its thick armor absorbed the impact. Its redundant systems kept critical functions online. Its crew, strapped into acceleration couches, survived the collision. The Krath battleship hadn't been built for ramming. Its elegant hull crumpled. Its crew, unprepared for physical impact, was thrown around their bridge. Dae-hyun pulled himself up from where the impact had thrown him. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. Boarding teams, go. Take that ship. Human Marines poured through the breach where the two ships had joined. They fought in zero gravity, in damaged corridors filled with floating debris and sparking wires. The Krath defenders were tough. But they weren't expecting enemies who would ram a ship just to board it. The battleship was captured in 20 minutes. Shriktar watched from his command ship in disbelief. One of his battleships had just been taken by these primitives. Taken by boarding action. Nobody used boarding actions anymore. It was too dangerous, too risky. These humans didn't seem to care about risk. Focus all fire on the human flagship, Shriktar ordered. Destroy it completely. 50 Krath ships turned their weapons on the Soul. The concentrated fire was overwhelming. Even human shields and armor couldn't hold against that much damage. The Soul began to break apart. All human ships cover the Soul, Sora ordered. Formation Delta 7. The entire human fleet moved to protect their flagship. They formed a wall of ships, each one taking hits meant for the Soul. They rotated positions, damaged ships pulling back while fresh ones moved forward. Coalition forces watched in amazement as humans used their own ships as shields for each other. This level of coordination and self-sacrifice was unprecedented. Why do they protect each other so completely? Velthar asked. Taejun's voice was quiet. Because that's what humans do. We protect our own. No matter the cost. The battle raged for hours. Krath ships were destroyed or disabled. Human ships were heavily damaged but still fighting. Coalition forces, protected by the human fleet, provided long-range support fire that picked off wounded Krath vessels. Finally, Shriktar made a decision he had never made before. All ships retreat, fall back to Krath space. The Krath fleet withdrew, leaving dozens of destroyed ships behind. The humans had lost 3 ships completely and another 12 were barely functional. But they had won. Velthar toured the Soul after the battle. The damage was horrifying. Entire sections were exposed to space. Corridors were charred black. Bodies were being recovered from damaged areas. But in the middle of all this destruction, human crew members were already working on repairs. How is this ship even flying? Velthar asked Dae-hyun, who had a bandage wrapped around his head. Backup systems. Redundant power. Over-engineered structures, Dae-hyun smiled tiredly, Doctor. Hana Park stared at the biological data on her screen and felt a chill run down her spine. She had been studying Krath physiology for 3 weeks ever since the battle. What she discovered changed everything. They're just like us, she said quietly to Minho, who sat across from her in the research lab. What do you mean? Hana pulled up comparative charts. Human biology on the left, Krath biology on the right. Look at this. Dense muscle tissue built for high gravity, redundant organ systems, aggressive immune responses, rapid healing. They evolved on a 1.0G world with active predators and harsh conditions. Another death world, Minho said, understanding dawning. The Krath are Deathworlders too. Exactly. They're not monsters. They're survivors, just like humans. Hana continued analyzing the data. They value strength because weakness meant death on their homeworld. They're aggressive because passivity meant extinction. They fight hard because that's what kept their species alive. The implications were enormous. The galaxy had been treating the Krath like violent barbarians for centuries. But maybe the Krath were just reacting to being surrounded by fragile species who didn't understand them. Ambassador Yuna called an emergency meeting with coalition leadership. Felthar, Tejun, and several council members attended via hologram. I want to propose direct negotiations with the Krath, Yuna said. Human to Krath, no intermediaries. Absolutely not, Velthar responded immediately. Putting two Deathworld species in direct contact is too dangerous. You could start a war that destroys both civilizations. Or we could start a peace that protects both civilizations, Yuna countered. The Coalition has been fighting the Krath for decades with no resolution. Maybe that's because you're approaching them wrong. How would we approach them right? With respect, Taijun said. The Coalition treats the Krath like criminals who need to be controlled. What if they're just warriors who need to be understood? The council debated for hours. Finally, with great reluctance, they agreed to allow human-Krath negotiations. But only under strict supervision and with heavy security. Envoy Hyunjong was chosen to represent humanity. He was a diplomatic specialist but also had military training. He understood both peace and war. He arrived at the neutral meeting station wearing a simple suit, unarmed but carrying a bottle of Korean soju. Commander Krishna represented the Krath Empire. He was a decorated warrior, scarred from many battles. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled hide covered in ceremonial armor. He entered the meeting room expecting either violence or submission. He got neither. Commander Krishna, Hyun said in a respectful tone, bowing slightly. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I brought a gift from Earth. He placed the bottle of soju on the table between them. Krishna stared at it suspiciously. What is this? Alcohol. A drink from my planet. We share it with friends to show trust. Hyun poured 2 glasses. On Earth, sharing drinks means you're willing to talk honestly. Krishna picked up the glass carefully. His massive claws could easily crush it. He sniffed the liquid and his eyes widened slightly. This smells like Kreshtor, a ceremonial drink from Krath Prime. Really? What's it made from? Fermented grain and minerals from volcanic soil. Very strong. Most species cannot drink it without becoming ill. Hyun smiled. Same with soju. It's made from rice and is quite strong. Most alien species find it toxic. They locked eyes for a moment, then both drank. The alcohol burned going down. Neither warrior flinched. Krishna set his glass down slowly. You are from the Death World Terra. Yes, and you are from Krath Prime, which is also a Death World. You understand this? We just figured it out, Hyun admitted. My scientists studied your biology. You evolved the same way humans did, fighting to survive. Building strength because strength meant life. Learning to conquer a world that tried to kill you. Krishna was silent for a long moment. The Coalition has never understood this. They think we are violent because we choose to be violent. They do not understand that violence was necessary for survival. I understand, Hyun said. Earth has hurricanes that destroy entire cities. Earthquakes that split the ground. Animals that hunt humans. We learned to fight because we had to. Krath Prime has volcanic eruptions that bury continents. Predators that hunt in packs. Seasons where the temperature drops so low that water turns to stone. Krishna poured more soju for both of them. We learned to be strong or we learned to be dead. They talked for hours. About their homeworlds. About their evolution. About what it meant to come from a place that constantly tested your will to survive. The Coalition tried to quarantine us, Krishna said. When they first discovered Krath Prime, they declared us too dangerous. They wanted to isolate our system, keep us contained. They said it was for our protection. But we knew the truth. They were afraid of us. They tried the same with Earth, Hyun said. They wanted to relocate our entire species to safer worlds. They couldn't understand why we would choose to stay on a dangerous planet. Because it is our home. Exactly. Krishna refilled their glasses again. Your ships fought well in the recent battle. I have studied the tactical reports. Your warriors do not retreat even when damaged. Because retreating means others get hurt. Humans protect our own. Krath do the same. We fight for our families, our clans, our species. Krishna looked at Hyun with something like respect. The Coalition does not understand this either. They fight for ideas, for policies. We fight for blood, for bone, for the survival of those we love. That's why we need to talk, Hyun said. Human to Krath, Deathworlder to Deathworlder. The Coalition can't negotiate for us because they don't think like us. Elder Velkor, the ancient Krath council member, joined the meeting the next day. He was skeptical of these discussions. The Krath had been at war with the Coalition for so long that peace seemed impossible. Why should we trust you? Velkor asked Hyun bluntly. You fight alongside the Coalition. You are their ally. We fight alongside them because they asked for help, Hyun replied. But we're not their soldiers. We're their partners. There's a difference. What difference? Partners choose to help. Soldiers are ordered to fight. Humans choose our battles. Velcor considered this. What do you want from this negotiation? Peace, Hyun said simply. But not the Coalition's version of peace where the strong are controlled and limited. Real peace where the strong protect the weak, where Deathworld species are respected for what they are. You want the Krath to stop fighting? I want the Krath to stop fighting alone, Hyun corrected. I want to propose something new. A Deathworlder alliance within the Coalition structure. Species from harsh worlds would have autonomous representation. We would have our own military forces. Our own trade agreements. But we would work with the Coalition, not against them. Krishna leaned forward. What would this accomplish? Recognition, Hyun said. The Coalition would acknowledge that Deathworld species have unique capabilities and needs. You wouldn't be treated as threats to be contained. You would be valued as defenders to be respected. And in return, Deathworld species would protect Coalition space. We're better at fighting than they are. We're built for it. Let us handle security while they handle science and diplomacy. Everyone does what they're best at. Velcor stroked his scaled chin thoughtfully. You offer the Krath a place of honor instead of a position of submission. Yes. And if we refuse? If we continue to fight? Hyun met his eyes calmly. Then humans will continue to defend the Coalition. And you've seen what happens when Deathworlders fight each other. It's brutal. It's costly. Neither side wins cleanly. You would fight us, if necessary. But I would rather fight beside you. The negotiations continued for days. Slowly, carefully, they built a framework for peace. The Deathworlder Accord. A new structure within the Coalition that gave high-gravity species autonomy and respect. But not all Krath agreed. Warlord Graskenor commanded a rogue fleet that refused to accept peace. He believed that strength meant domination, that mercy was weakness, that the Krath should rule, not cooperate. Peace is surrender, Graskenor declared in a public broadcast. The weak Coalition and these human pretenders want to chain us, to limit our power. I will not allow it. His fleet attacked a Coalition colony world without warning. Millions of civilians were in danger. Both human and loyalist Krath forces scrambled to respond. On the Bridge of the Soul, Admiral Daehyun received the distress call. He looked at his tactical officer. How long until we reach the colony? 6 hours at maximum speed. And the Krath loyalist fleet? They're closer. 4 hours. Daehyun made a decision. Open a channel to Commander Krishna. Time to see if this alliance is real. Krishna appeared on the view screen. Admiral, I assume you received the distress signal. We did. Your fleet is closer. We'll follow as backup. You trust us to protect Coalition civilians? I trust you to do what warriors do. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Daehyun paused. Need any help? Krishna's expression might have been a smile. It was hard to tell with Krath faces. Send your fighters when you arrive. My ships are strong, but your pilots fly like madness. Together we will stop Graskenor. See you there, Daehyun said. Velthar watched this exchange from Coalition Command and felt something shift. The Colony World Sanctuary Prime was burning. Smoke rose from dozens of impact sites where Graskenor's bombardment had struck. 3 million civilians, mostly Coalition species, were trapped in underground shelters designed for storms, not warfare. Lieutenant Jiwoo Choi led her Marine platoon through the rubble of what had been a residential district. Next to her squad moved a unit of Krath warriors led by a soldier named Thrak Kor. This was their first joint ground operation. The tension was obvious. Human squad maintained 3-meter spacing from Krath units. Jiwoo ordered over the comm. We don't know their combat patterns yet. Give each other room to work. Thrak Kor growled something in the Krath language. His translator converted it to, Krath warriors maintain 5-meter spacing from humans. Do not interfere with their strange tactics. They approached a collapsed building where sensors detected life signs. Civilians were trapped inside, but rogue Krath forces were moving through the area. They would find the civilians soon. We need to clear this sector, Jiwoo said, studying her tactical display. My squad will advance through the eastern approach. Can your warriors cover the western side? Thrakakor examined the terrain with his enhanced vision. The western approach has no cover. Open ground. Suicide to cross? Then we'll create cover, Sergeant Boranam said. She was already unpacking demolition charges. We blow the wall here, create rubble for concealment, then advance through the debris. You would destroy buildings to make cover? Thruckcore sounded confused. We would destroy anything that helps us win, Bora replied. Buildings can be rebuilt. People can't. Thruckcore made a rumbling sound that might have been approval. This is practical thinking. Krath approve. The charges detonated precisely, bringing down a section of wall that created a natural barrier. Bora's squad advanced through the dust cloud while Jiwoo's team moved in from the east. The Krath warriors followed, adapting to human tactics on the fly. They encountered the first rogue Krath patrol 3 minutes later. 5 warriors, heavily armed, advancing toward the civilian shelter. They were larger than the loyalist Krath, veterans of many campaigns. They saw the approaching forces and prepared for combat. The firefight began instantly. Energy weapons lit up the smoke-filled street. Jiwoo's squad took cover behind rubble, returning fire with their kinetic rifles. The rogue Krath charged forward, relying on their natural armor to absorb damage. They're advancing, one of Jiwoo's Marines called out. Standard suppression isn't stopping them. Switch to armor-piercing rounds, Jiwoo ordered. Aim for joint areas. Thruckcore, can your warriors flank them? Already moving, came the reply. The loyalist Krath circled around through a damaged building. They emerged behind the rogue patrol. Suddenly the rogues were caught between 2 Deathworld species working together. The fight was over in seconds. Thruckcore stood over an unconscious rogue warrior, breathing heavily. Your weapons are effective. They penetrate armor we thought was invulnerable. Your flanking maneuver was perfect, Jiwoo replied. We make a good team. They cleared the sector building by building. The cooperation improved with each engagement. Humans provided technical support, demolition expertise, and ranged fire. Krath provided close combat superiority, natural durability, and enhanced senses. Together, they were more effective than either species alone. Corporal Yoonji Han set up a field medical station in a partially intact structure. She was a combat medic trained to work under fire. Within an hour, she was treating wounded soldiers from both species. A loyalist Krath warrior named Throcktal was carried in with severe injuries. Energy burns covered his side. His breathing was labored. Yoonji examined him quickly, her training taking over. I need plasma for a Krath physiology, she called out. And bring me the xenobiology medical kit. She worked quickly, applying treatments designed for Krath biology. The burn gel cooled his scales. The plasma stabilized his blood pressure. The pain medication was dosed specifically for his species' neurochemistry. Throcktal's eyes opened. He stared at the human tending his wounds. Why do you help me? Because you're injured, Yoonji said simply. That's what medics do. We help injured people. I am Krath, your enemy until recently. You're a warrior protecting civilians. That makes you my ally. She finished bandaging his wounds. You'll be fine. The burns are serious but not fatal. Rest for 4 hours, then you can return to duty. Throcktal watched as she moved to the next patient, a human marine with a broken arm. She treated both species with equal care. No hesitation. No favoritism. Just professional medical treatment. For the first time, Throcktal understood what humans meant by compassion. It wasn't weakness. It was a form of strength. The strength to care for others even when caring was difficult. The battle for Sanctuary Prime continued for 3 days. Grasknor's rogue forces were determined to prove their dominance. They used brutal tactics, not caring about collateral damage. They targeted civilian areas deliberately, trying to draw out defending forces. The combined human-Krath defense refused to take the bait. They fought smart instead of angry. They prioritized civilian evacuations over revenge. They worked together with increasing efficiency. Captain Tae-jun coordinated from orbit, watching tactical displays that showed both human and Krath units moving in synchronized patterns. It was remarkable how quickly the 2 species had learned to fight together. The eastern sector needs reinforcement, he transmitted to both commanders. Rogue forces are pushing hard there. Human Squad Delta moving to assist, Jiwoo reported. Krath Warrior Group 3 also responding, Throckcore added. They arrived simultaneously, approaching from different directions. The rogues found themselves surrounded by enemies who understood their tactics but fought with combined strength. Bora and a Krath demolitions expert named Kreshtal worked together to set traps for advancing rogue forces. They combined human explosives with Krath combat engineering. The results were devastating. Your people understand destruction, Kreshtel said with approval. This is honorable work. Your people understand structure, Bora replied. You know exactly where to hit buildings to make them fall in specific patterns. That's useful. They shared knowledge freely. Bora showed Kreshtal how human-shaped charges could cut through reinforced walls. Kreshtal showed Bora how Krath combat engineers used vibration frequencies to weaken structures invisibly. In space above the planet, Sora's fighter wings coordinated with Krath atmospheric assault craft. They ran combined patrols protecting civilian transports as they evacuated the most dangerous zones. Human fighters, this is Krath Assault Craft 7, came a transmission. We have visual on a rogue squadron approaching civilian transports. Request assistance. Copy that, Assault 7, Sora replied. We're inbound. Stay with the transports. We'll handle the intercept. Her wing engaged the rogues at high altitude. The dogfight was fierce. Rogue Krath pilots were skilled and aggressive. But they were alone, fighting for dominance. Sora's pilots were coordinated, fighting for protection. The battle turned when Krath assault craft joined the fight. They were slower than human fighters, but heavily armored and well-armed. Together, the two forces covered each other's weaknesses. Human fighters provided speed and maneuverability. Krath craft provided durability and firepower. The rogue squadron was driven off. The civilian transports reached orbit safely. On the ground, the decisive moment came at a critical evacuation site. 10,000 civilians needed to move through a corridor that rogue forces had targeted. Holding that corridor long enough for evacuation would require a defensive stand against overwhelming numbers. Taijun looked at the tactical situation with growing concern. We don't have enough forces to hold that position. We have exactly enough forces, Kreshna said from his command ship. If we use them correctly. The plan was desperate. A combined human Krath unit would hold a single choke point while civilians evacuated. They would be outnumbered 10-1. Survival was unlikely. Every soldier volunteered. Jiwu's Marines took position on one side of the corridor. Thrakkor's warriors took the other. They fortified the position as best they could. Then they waited. Grasknor personally led the assault. He wanted to crush this symbol of human Krath cooperation. He brought 200 of his best warriors and told them to show no mercy. The defense began when the first wave hit. Energy weapons and kinetic rifles filled the air with deadly fire. Rogue Krath charged forward, expecting defenders to break. They didn't break. Human Marines rotated positions, maintaining constant fire while reloading. Krath warriors held the front line, their natural armor absorbing hits that would kill humans. Hyunji moved between positions, treating wounds and keeping soldiers in the fight. West side weakening, someone called out. Reinforcing, Bora responded. She and 3 Krath warriors rushed to plug the gap. They fought side by side, human tactics combining with Krath strength. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. The rogue forces kept coming in waves. The defenders were exhausted, wounded, running low on ammunition. But the evacuation continued behind them. Civilians moving to safety, children being saved. 80% evacuated, Taejun reported. You need to hold for 10 more minutes. We'll hold, Jiwoo said. Her voice was tired but determined. Thrakkor's, the arena was built on a neutral station at the edge of known space. Circular, with seating for 10,000 spectators. Billions more watched through holographic broadcasts across coalition space. This was unprecedented. A formal duel to decide the fate of the peace accord. Grasknor had issued the challenge 2 weeks after his defeat at Sanctuary Prime. According to ancient Krath tradition, disputes could be resolved through single combat between champions. If Grasknor won, his warriors would be released and the peace negotiations would end. If he lost, he would formally accept the Deathworlder Accord. Admiral Daehyun Cho accepted the challenge, not as an admiral but as a warrior. Velthar stood in the observation deck watching the preparations. This is madness. We nearly had peace. Now we're gambling everything on a fight? It's not madness, Hyun explained. It's honor. Grasknor needs to be defeated in a way he respects. Military defeat wasn't enough. He needs to lose in single combat according to his own rules. And if Admiral Cho loses, then we start negotiations from the beginning, Yuna said calmly. But he won't lose. How can you be sure? Because Daehyun isn't fighting to win. He's fighting to teach. In the preparation room, Daehyun stretched carefully. He was older than most active combat personnel. Gray streaked his hair. Scars marked his body from decades of service. But his eyes were sharp and his movements were precise. Taejun entered, carrying equipment. I brought your gear. No gear, Daehyun said. This is single combat. No weapons, no armor, just warrior against warrior. He's huge, and younger, and has natural armor plating. I know, Daehyun smiled slightly. That's why this will be interesting. On the other side of the arena, Graskenor prepared himself. He was in his prime, covered in ceremonial war paint. His scales gleamed with oil. This was what he lived for. Combat, victory, dominance. Krishna came to see him. You understand what this duel means? I understand I will win, Graskenor replied. I am stronger, faster, better armed naturally. This human is old and soft. That old human held a defensive position for 23 minutes against impossible odds. Krishna reminded him, do not underestimate humans, especially old humans. They survived this long for a reason. The arena filled with spectators, coalition species of every kind, Krath warriors who had come to watch their own champion, human military personnel supporting their admiral. The tension was incredible. President Hai Wan-ko arrived from Earth specifically for this event. She took her seat in the diplomatic section next to Council Speaker Til Wen. Both leaders understood that what happened in the next hour would shape galactic politics for generations. The combatants entered from opposite sides. Graskenor walked with confidence, raising his arms to acknowledge the cheering Krath spectators. He was a warrior in his element. Daehyun walked calmly with no showmanship. He bowed respectfully to the audience, to the judges, and to his opponent. Then he stretched one more time and waited. The judge, a neutral alien from a species with no stake in the outcome, explained the rules. This is formal combat under Krath tradition. The fight continues until one combatant yields or cannot continue. Killing is permitted but not required. Spectators will not interfere. Are both warriors ready? Ready, Graskenor growled. Ready, Daehyun said quietly. Begin. Graskenor charged immediately. His strategy was simple. Use his size and strength to overwhelm the smaller human quickly. End this before the old warrior could adapt. Daehyun didn't meet the charge. He sidestepped smoothly, letting Graskenor's momentum carry him past. As the Krath stumbled, Daehyun struck precisely at a knee joint. Not hard enough to damage, just hard enough to make Graskenor aware of the vulnerability. Graskenor roared and swung his claws. Daehyun ducked under the swing and stepped in close, too close for the longer reach to be effective. He struck 3 times, quick jabs to pressure points that Hana had identified in Krath biology. Then he disengaged before Graskenor could grab him. The crowd murmured. The human was smaller but faster, and he was fighting smart, not strong. Graskenor adjusted his tactics. He became more cautious, not rushing in. He used his longer reach to keep distance. They circled each other, both looking for openings. Daehyun breathed steadily, conserving energy. He had been in hundreds of fights. He knew that combat wasn't about the strongest hit. It was about the last hit. Endurance mattered more than power. They clashed again. Graskenor's claws scraped across Daehyun's shoulder, drawing blood. The human grunted but didn't retreat. He closed the distance and landed a solid kick to Graskenor's midsection. The Krath's natural armor absorbed most of it, but not all. Minutes passed. They traded blows. Graskenor was landing more hits, his natural weapons more dangerous. But Daehyun was targeting joints, weak points, areas where even Krath armor was thin. Each strike was calculated. After 10 minutes, both warriors were bleeding. Graskenor's scales were cracked in several places. Daehyun had cuts across his arms and torso, but neither had yielded. The crowd was silent now, absorbed in the battle. This wasn't the quick domination they expected. This was 2 skilled warriors fighting with everything they had. Graskenor began to breathe heavily. He was powerful, but humans had evolved for endurance. Daehyun's breathing was controlled, steady. He had conserved energy while Graskenor had expended it in powerful attacks. You fight like a coward, Graskenor snarled. Dodging, running, strike me directly. I'm fighting to win, not to impress, Daehyun replied. There's a difference. They clashed again. This time Graskenor was slower. His movements less precise. Exhaustion was setting in. Daehyun pressed the advantage, landing combinations of strikes that accumulated damage. 20 minutes into the fight, Graskenor stumbled. His legs were shaking. He had taken too many hits to his joints. His endurance was failing. Daehyun could have pressed for a finish. could have overwhelmed the exhausted Krath and forced a yield. Instead, he stepped back and waited. "Get up," he said simply. Grasknor stared at him in confusion. "Why do you wait? Finish it!" "Because this isn't about finishing you," Daehyun said. "This is about teaching you. Get up. Fight with honor." Grasknor pulled himself upright. His pride wouldn't let him stay down. He attacked again, putting everything into one final assault. His claws found Daehyun's ribs, cracking them. The human gasped in pain, but he didn't fall. He grabbed Grasknor's arm and used the Krath's own momentum to throw him. It was a move from human martial arts, using an opponent's strength against them. Grasknor crashed to the ground. Daehyun limped over to him. His ribs were definitely broken. Blood dripped from multiple wounds, but he was standing. He extended his hand. "Do you yield?" he asked. Grasknor looked up at the human. At this old warrior who had fought with skill and intelligence instead of brute force, who had shown mercy multiple times during the fight, who was offering respect even in victory. "I yield," Grasknor said quietly. The arena erupted. Some cheered. Some sat in stunned silence. The fight had lasted 32 minutes, longer than any Krath duel in recorded history, and it ended not with dominance but with respect. Daehyun helped Grasknor to his feet. The Krath was massive compared to the human, but in this moment Daehyun seemed taller. "You fought with honor," Daehyun said. "You have nothing to be ashamed of." "You defeated me," Grasknor replied. "I am shamed." "No," Daehyun corrected. "You learned. There's a difference. Defeat is only shameful if you learn nothing from it." Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. Yoonji was there, treating both warriors. She worked on Daehyun's ribs while another medic treated Grasknor's injuries. "That was stupid," she scolded Daehyun. "You're too old for this." "I'm exactly old enough for this," he replied, wincing as she worked. Young warriors fight to prove themselves. Old warriors fight to teach. The formal peace ceremony took place 3 days later. By then, Daehyun could stand without visible pain, though Unji had lectured him extensively about his broken ribs. The Coalition Council chambers were packed with representatives from hundreds of species. The Deathworlder Accord was about to be officially ratified. President Haewon Ko stood at the podium representing Earth. Velcor stood beside her, representing the Krath Empire. Other Deathworld species had sent delegates interested in joining this new alliance. "Today marks a transformation in galactic civilization," Haewon began. "For too long, strength was seen as a threat. Species from harsh worlds were treated as dangers to be contained, but we are not dangers. We are defenders," Velcor continued in his deep, rumbling voice. "The Krath fought for respect for decades. We used the wrong methods. We created conflict instead of cooperation. The humans showed us a better way, not through weakness but through shared strength. The accord was comprehensive. Deathworld species would have autonomous military forces under their own command. They would protect Coalition space but not be controlled by Coalition bureaucracy. In exchange, they would receive full trading rights, technology sharing, and equal representation in council decisions. This is not about creating a military alliance against anyone," Yuna explained to the council. "This is about recognizing that different species have different strengths.